Well, good morning. This is Andrew Turner from the host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today I'm joined by my very special guest, Mr. Andy Snuggs.
Good morning.
He's the managing partner of Future Kings Ventures. And we're going to talk about quite a little bit of interesting stuff today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me along today.
No problem at all. So, tell me a bit about yourself and can you do a bit of an intro? What gets you up in the morning these days?
Oh, a good strong cup of coffee gets me going in the morning, that's for sure. What do I get up to? What gets me up in the morning? Well, this word pivot that we were talking about earlier, my career has pivoted over the last 2 years, and I'm now involved in the startup community, and that is what gets me up in the morning, meeting the whole startup community, from investors to mentors like yourself, to the actual founders. And I find that very, very inspiring to get up and just listen to some of the ambitions that they're not always young either. In fact, we won't tell them our age, but apparently 50%.
But you know we're 21, you mean?
Apparently 50% of startups founders are now over the age of 50.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it is no longer just a young man's game.
So there's still a chance for us yet?
Yeah. And a lot of my peers have all stopped working for other businesses and are all setting up their own businesses.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's energy in the old dog yet.
Dogs. That's plural. So you obviously talked about you kind of, obviously the last 2 years you said you kind of pivoted a bit personally.
Yes.
What's the current things you're working on? What's your occupation? What do you actually do?
But yeah, startup is a very broad term. Actually, I got two key roles, if you like. I'm a non-exec director for something I've never done before. A lady called Anna Jacobs. She is a designer, artist, has developed a homewares business, textiles, developed product, and have been completely inspired by her passion as well as her amazing creativity for creating. And she left her job in the legal industry.
Oh, wow.
And to start this, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago? Done most of it on her own.
So she's a lawyer, basically?
No, she was actually working for Slaughter & Maid, one of the big guys. She was running all their business development and marketing side for about 8-10 years,
right.
But very senior. And she just gave it all up. Went, I want to go back to my love of art. And so she gave it all up, 2 young kids, and I was completely, this was 2 years ago, completely and utterly taken by her brilliant product, creativity. Yeah. And I also think just working with someone that's creating something and it's tangible. And for all the conversation we're going to talk about today around tech and growth, what's so nice about this, you might call it old economy, making things that people love and get inspired by.
Woodwork and metalwork.
Yes, and
pottery.
She's all about colour. So I work with her. And I'm a non-exec director, and that's very exciting because we've moved into retail now. Not the right time of
I remember this is the shop you've got.
Yeah, we just opened up on Tottenham Court Road. Obviously, the e-commerce side. So
Tottenham Court Road's in London, yeah?
Tottenham Court Road, yes, in London, just off Oxford Street.
Okay.
In Heels, if you want to come and visit. Next to Heels.
And the domain name is?
Mention my name. We'll get you a discount. So that's one part of what I do, and I spent quite a lot of time on that last year. But in the last 12 months, I met another startup in the field of branding.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of cynicism in certain quarters, particularly in the startup community, about the role of branding. We'll come on to that later. But I met these guys. They, again, set up on their own and been completely inspired by their passion and what they wanted to do. And a lot of that focus was on helping younger businesses understand the role of brand.
Right.
So I started working with them.
So is this on a particular segment, or is this?
We have initially. I'm a firm believer in being quite focused at the beginning, and then try migrating into other sectors. It has been in the broadest area of tech.
Right. So technology, basically.
Yes, and
it's pretty broad, really.
It is very broad.
It's got sub-segments as well,
and increasingly so.
Yeah.
And the business plan, I've been working with them now for a year.
Okay.
That has, to your point, moved into different tech sectors. But for them, I launched for them, or with them, what we call Future Kings Ventures, which is, if you think of a traditional accelerator or a traditional incubator, most certainly the latter provides a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
That's where all the focus is for budding entrepreneurs and founders.
And the interesting thing on that point about, I heard the other day, I don't know if you've heard something, there's over 250 accelerator program just in London.
Yeah.
Is that what you?
Yeah. They are.
I mean, that's
they're
staggering.
launching all the time. And I have apologies to any accelerators out there. Like anything, there are some really, really good ones, and there are some that I don't think they're not all that good. But the general view of accelerators, because I did go and review them, was they give this thing called brand a very, very light touch.
Right. Yeah, within a 6 or 12 week program.
You get a couple of hours exposure to what is a brand and how you.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it's a bit like anything. It's all very well being shown how to do something, but doing it is a different skill altogether.
Yeah.
And this is what Future Kings wanted to help startups to do, because we're firm believers that brand is an underutilized business tool. And many startups, and particularly in tech, and the biggest challenges for a lot of tech businesses, not only when you go to customers, but the most important first stage is when you go to investors, which are human beings, they're people, is to get them to think differently about what your technology is going to do for a sector or a service. So brand is about bringing the business strategy to life. And
so you talked about MVP,
yes,
but you think you mentioned some other kind of phrase that you use?
We've got an MVP, so a minimum viable brand. So we've sort of plagiarised, if you like, the tech speak. And we launched that in April this year, getting some fantastic traction across tech, but other areas, just through word of mouth. So we've actually got some packaged goods products that are coming into us at the moment and talking to.
So you said your part of the business was ventures, but then so is there like different bits to your business?
Well, we are, I mean, as a startup, and like any startups, you keep evolving and understanding where you're getting traction. So we're now 2.5 years old. Started in Bristol, opened up in London last year, opened up in Manchester last week. We're following, in effect, the startup, if you like, centres.
Next point, San Francisco.
Funny enough, I'm trying to get an excuse to go to Sydney, but but that's a bit too far, bit of a commute. No, it actually maybe, Manchester definitely, we have aspirations to go abroad, but more about that later. Pardon me. So
what you're saying is that your proposition of FKV Ventures is getting, since April, people seem to be getting it. It seems to be landing quite well in the market. Is that what you're finding?
Yes, I think, Future Kings is who we are. We have a proposition for startups, which is the minimum viable brand program. Specifically tailored, unique in the marketplace. No one else is doing this.
So that's your unique, your fair advantage.
To help them get to investors quicker and to get to market quicker and more effectively around the role of brand. And it complements everything else. It complements incubators, it complements accelerators. It's a benefit to seed investors, angel investors, obviously founders, because we're all going to go in the same direction.
Just a quick question on that. So when you did the analysis before you launched the business, did you do some work to talk to founders, talk to co-founders, find out what the pain points were? Did they got to a point where did they hit a wall? Did they have some discontinuity? What was the pain?
Well, you're absolutely right. I did the research, if you like. I went and spoke to tech investors and incubators like Passion Capital. I went and saw some of the accelerators, like Bethel Green Ventures. I went and spoke to founders. I went and spoke to angel investors and asked the question. And I think it was Rob at Passion Capital that hit the nail on the head. They would invest to get an MVP, but they would invest relatively at seed stage. It's a 6-figure sum, no more than 200K, 250K. All of that is going to go on tech. They haven't got
there's no balance
cash
in investment.
Basically to invest in brand.
So that's building the product itself. That you're gonna either B2B or B2C or whatever.
So they've got the product.
So it's engineering basically. It's funding engineering. The product.
It's a minimum viable product. It's your beta version, and that's what.
But what you said is in the go-to-market and the actual the marketing and proposition strategy piece of that the level of investment or the percentage share of that investment is very low.
Very low. They don't.
So there's imbalance, you could say.
Absolutely. And we're firm believers that you need to get. We define brand strategy as it brings your business strategy to life. It is bringing a very compelling proposition, and we focus specifically on investors for Future Kings Ventures. But the feedback was two things. I've just said one, but I haven't got any cash. I can't afford to do this properly. So they go and spend a small amount relatively, and they get a logo and they get typeface and colour, but that isn't brand. That's
like an ID. Yeah.
That's just a.
So I mean, we're sat in this room here down in Metal Box Factory in South London, south of the river, is it?
South of the river, yes.
Oh,
200 metres away.
I feel a bit scared because I'm south of the river here. But we're actually in quite an interesting room here. So this is what is this room we're in here? Is this some kind of
this is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing for one of our. It's not actually for one of the startups. This is actually for one of our, if you like, enterprise businesses. We work with a big finance company that we work very closely with, who have had multiple acquisitions, and now we're helping bring all of those businesses together. What do you create? We create this. We call this the Armory.
Oh, right, okay.
So what we create this where we actually map out with the clients and their team the context of how the business is today and where it wants to be in the future.
Okay. So we're sat in a room, and obviously you can't see this because obviously this is the audio version, but you'll see as we release the G&T Sessions podcast, this episode 5 on YouTube, you'll see this in glorious Technicolor. Is actually we're sat in kind of like you said, the Armory, which is kind of like basically visualization. It's like a map. It's like a walk around room.
Yeah.
Of your current as is reality and your future strategy. Is that how you describe it? Or?
It is, and I think there's no tech involved in this at all.
Yeah.
This is real, and it's all about interacting with the client and their teams and getting an immediate response and collaborating.
Yeah.
And our role is about curating what is the feedback that comes back from the team. And adding value to that. And this is all here as stimulus.
Yeah. And you would say what the kind of leadership team or potentially the whole company through this is to get that alignment? Or
it wouldn't be the whole company, it would be the main stakeholders.
Yeah, okay.
So it certainly could be.
But it's a way of getting consistency of understanding and getting on the same page.
But it's all about aligning.
Yeah.
Because lots of businesses, whether they be from small to large, as soon as you get beyond a certain point, the thinking isn't necessarily aligned unless you have a clear brand strategy. People start to go in different directions.
Right.
And we've just done some research actually for scale-ups, which is another audience we target, where what are the biggest challenges to scale up? So 4 out of 10 startups fail within 4 years.
Right.
We just did some research to understand, so what are the challenges, other than the ones that are recorded a lot about cash flow, product fails, pretty crap management.
Yeah.
One of the things is about having consistency and alignment internally,
right,
and therefore externally.
And then internal versus go to market.
So one of the biggest challenges is employing the right people, particularly in the early stage.
Yeah, I mean, speaking personally, since I came down back from my stint in Silicon Valley last year, that I've been working with a few different organisations, and that whole piece around getting on the same page. And making sure you've got that consistency of what vision, mission, values, how do you actually go to market? What is the strategy? What's the plan? And then how do you actually take that to market? It's a hot topic. It sounds simple, it sounds obvious, but unfortunately, people are still learning about how to get that done. It's very important, actually.
A lot of the focus is about go-to-market, which of course is imperative. You're not going to get
generating revenue and income.
But the way we approach it is what we call, we create an organising idea that sits at the heart of the business, and we start internally first, then go externally. Okay. And I think what I most enjoy about this is, having worked in my previous career, a lot of blue chip enterprise businesses, you would do the brand for them from a customer perspective.
Yeah.
But what the outside world saw was not necessarily true of the inside world.
Yeah. Okay.
These are legacy businesses. Startups can get it right at the beginning.
Yeah.
They don't have that legacy.
Yeah. So I suppose in the context of the G and the T, so we obviously not gin and tonic, we're not sat here drinking gin and tonic, maybe that's in the future.
Give it an hour.
In the near future.
Give it an hour.
Yeah, maybe around lunchtime. Obviously on the T side, so technology. So I think what you said is that the Future Kings Ventures business is really very focused about how do you help tech companies, balance on that thing about brand, get the right balance between engineering and brand, building product, and then taking the product to market and having that strategy. Have you always been in tech, or is this kind of a new experience for you as well? Or is the kind of, you said about the life before Future Kings and then life now? How much involved in tech were you before you got involved in this FKV initiative?
I think this thing called tech has always been around. It's just suddenly it's pervading everywhere now.
Right.
In many sectors.
Yeah.
My previous role was in marketing, but it was in the advent, early days of data and digital.
Okay.
So, it was online, this thing called digital. And so that was, that's tech, and how you integrate that into systems, how you integrate that into customer communication, CRM programs. Mm-hmm. So that was the tech we were evolving. And I go back to it. Some of the biggest frustrations, if that's not too strong a word, we had was, there's this capability. Technology enables us to do this now to help give your customers better service.
Yeah.
The legacy systems, I work with a lot of big banks, and they just could never implement it.
Yeah.
Because they just had too many systems that were not compatible.
Yeah.
So they were never able to keep up. So what you're seeing now, and particularly in FinTech, is you're now seeing an abundance of new technology coming through that is solving age-old problems.
Well, interesting is, I went to a briefing the other week actually to that point about these new entrants in that market with Starling Bank. I don't know if I've just recently signed up for them. It literally took probably 2 minutes to open a current account. Absolutely very smooth, frictionless, really impressive experience. And if you look at some of the research work that the independents doing around comparing their experience to the usual suspects, it's like, it's really setting a new standard. Yeah. It's really quite amazing. Yeah. And the whole thing about payments and all that kind of stuff. So it's, but until you actually experience it yourself, I don't think you realise how friendly it is, how they've actually listened to customers and actually then implemented it in a real process.
The biggest challenge still for the likes of Starling, Atom, Revolut,
Monzo, etc.,
is they're getting the headlines, they're getting huge valuations.
Yeah.
But what isn't changing yet, and it gradually is still consumer attitude that influences behaviour. So,
even the risk of risk.
Well, obviously, legally, you must be able to switch bank accounts in 7 days.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people switch banks? It's like 5 or 7, 6%.
Obviously, low single.
Yeah, it's been around for years.
Yeah.
Because research says, banking's awful. Don't like banking. They're all rubbish.
Well, you see, like
except my bank. My bank's all right.
Into that thing about this, you're more likely to get divorced than actually change your bank account.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Now, this is all going to change, but one of the things, and this is where brand is really important, is we're changing what comes first, attitude or behaviour.
Right.
Ever debate I've had in my career.
Right.
And we now have a proposition that on a piece of paper you'll go, that makes perfect sense. But will they actually go and do it? And I think that's the power
of
brand.
It's like the inertia.
It is. Yeah. So early adopters, and certainly the younger generation will be, and over the course of the next 5-10 years, the whole banking sector and finance sectors will look very, very different. You'll still have the big players, but there will be a lot more choice out there.
So it sounds like, back to this tea thing, so it sounds like you obviously, you met the guy at Future Kings, you talked about this new business model with the ventures business, and you're obviously getting more involved, more deeply into technology now, because you're working with all these tech startups now, and getting, I presume there's some things you're learning, I suppose, as well. Yeah. Even now, I'm every day I'm meeting new people, having new sessions, and I'm not learning. I've spent 20 odd years in technology, so that's the thing I'm still learning. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff is still the same. It's just being repackaged and stuff. But is that what you're finding as well? You're learning about this tech stuff as well. To your point, it's ubiquitous. It's embedded in our daily lives. Unfortunately, if you look at your bank account and you look at all these little line items, you go, okay, Google took this much money off me. Apple took this much. The Agfa boys, Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon. Just amazing how they've actually intrinsically embedded themselves into your life.
Yeah. I think this thing called tech is a big word, but there are I think on the danger side, there's tech for the sake of tech. Yeah. Where technology is leading it. We can do this now. Mm-hmm. We're going, but why? It was perfectly okay before. Don't have to continue to evolve for the sake of evolving. Yeah. Steve Jobs got it absolutely right. His legacy was made technology about people. And that's when I start to look at, when I start working we talked about FinTech, but the amount of well-being now, 150 startups in the last 12 months.
It's like a new segment, right?
Yeah, a whole new being. And part of it is as a consequence of technology.
What's that? Well-tech.
Well-tech,
being tech.
And if you, I don't know if you've heard of Calm. Have you heard of Calm?
Yeah, I've got the
Right.
yeah.
Its valuation recently, $250 million.
I use it every day.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
The meditation.
You seem very calm. I was staggered by that. Which was a very basic.
It's really good.
Well, funny enough, my son, now this is a demonstration of who is embracing technology. When he was 16, he's a couple years old now, for his I call them O-levels, GCSEs, he showed me, he said, Dad, before I go to sleep, I put this app on called Calm. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was 16-year-olds picking up on technology. And of course, that's what I'm saying, the landscape has changed over time.
That's an example of tech for good, right? So, you know, even if actually stats, it shows how many hours you've done, how many sessions you've done, you know, your longest. It's very, very good. In fact, you should download it today. I have no association with it.
I tell you, sorry, the converse for me is, it's not about having more, it's having less.
Yeah.
So one of the things for me is turn things off. And
that's the notification. That's the notification stuff. That's the we could get mobile,
get into the
dopamine. So on the growth side, so the G, so you know, obviously, some people could say they have, you know, their journey from birth to where they are today is kind of being like that, you know, like peaks, and that, I think it's peaks and valleys. Yeah. So can you explain a bit about your personal journey? What peaks and valleys have you been through? What have you learned through those peaks and valleys? What can you share that would be insightful as you've gone through some of those?
Not too cliched.
Not always, yes.
Well, I think one of the things, there's definitely
it's like a bit like I've just discovered. The advice to your younger self, as I you know, explained to you for this, it's a bit like, you know, when I started getting involved in technology and all this stuff, I didn't realise how fundamentally it was going to change the world. I just got involved in all this quite interested in it. Now suddenly it's, you know.
Well, you just said something. Advice to myself is, or to anybody, is do things you're interested in. And that I learned or decided at a very young age, at 18, just about to complete my A-levels then. And I was, back in those days, my career path was banking. I had job offers from Rothschilds and Warburgs at the time.
Oh, really?
The biggest modern banks.
Yeah.
And that's what I should have been doing, a banker. And I surprised my parents by turning around saying, I just don't want to do this. My heart's not in it. I want to go and run my own business sometime.
Right.
So I actually went off to college and did a business degree, still pushing on finance, and I fell into this thing because I was too busy enjoying myself.
So you're an accountant? You're an accountant?
No, I'm not an accountant. I can read balance sheets and I can.
Okay.
I'm pretty good with numbers.
I thought you were going to declare something to me then.
No. So
it's like, you know, the secret millionaire. It's like the secret accountant.
No. Well, as part of my degree, I was doing finance, and then again, I didn't want to do that. So I said, no, I want to do this thing called marketing, and I ended up in a job, in my placement, my first job, as part of Ogilvy in this.
Oh, really? Oh, fantastic.
And I didn't even know. I'd just gone for this interview. I didn't really know what the job was.
Yeah.
I got this job offer.
It's not like the place to start, isn't it?
But they've just been, well, this particular division had just been bought by WPP.
Oh, right.
And so it's moving from a private to being an owned business, fast growing. And basically, I started there, and I was there for the next 7 years, director at the time I was 27, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Really, really hard work, no doubt.
So were you on the creative side, or were you on the account side?
I was,
You're managing accounts, basically.
Yeah, I was if you like, suit accounts. We got it very much exposed to the planning side.
Yeah.
Eventually was director for, actually a director for what we're going called integration with the ad agency. So I was based at JWT, sometimes I would be a neighbour. Right. My role was integration. Yeah. And even had, you know, sounds a nice time, but even doing international pitches in New York as part of a integrated team, which all sounds lovely, and it was a great experience. But then it was.
And who would be the kind of clients you were working with then?
Oh, clients. Well, back away. This was the times of Safeway and brands like that.
Wow.
Barclaycard.
Okay.
Sainsbury's.
So like the blue chips, basically.
Yeah, mostly blue chips. Yeah.
Right.
Which is interesting. And then I go back to the point. What was interested? I started being interested. This thing called data. This thing called digital on the horizon. So I jumped ship. I went to a startup again that had just been bought by BBDO. It was called Barraclough Hall Woolston Gray then, and became Proximity what it is today.
Okay, Proximity.
Went there, even took a bit of a downgrade in my status. I went, it doesn't matter. I want to do something new.
Yeah.
So I learned about that. Again, became main board director. But then I got a bit fed up with the corporate world and met a guy that was running a very small agency called Geronimo. He invited me to go partner, and I went in there. It was more of an SP agency. I turned it into a direct digital data agency, sales promotion agency,
okay, right, okay.
which is now called experiential agency.
Okay.
And, basically I ran that business then for the next 12, 13 years. Became owner.
Independent, basically.
Yeah, independent, and that grew. So that was if you like.
So you said you pivoted from sales promotion to what area? So
it's data and digital.
Data and digital, okay.
And then pivoted, if you know if that's the right expression. I went from two corporates to an independent. Okay. Which is what I always wanted to do. And my partner at the time, he took a back seat, became sort of what's the word? Sleeping chairman. That's the right expression. And I ran the business, and it was fantastic. Very, very hard work, but a great team. Learned lots about what it is.
And what kind of customers were you working with there? Was that the same kind of blue chips, or was it a range of different sizes?
At our peak, we had ING Direct.
Okay, yeah.
Ran all of that. We had SEAT UK. We had Direct Line and Direct Line for Business. In fact, that was probably the biggest issue we had. Direct Line for Business became too big.
Right.
It was huge for us.
Like all consuming.
Yeah, yeah. But we had a great relationship. And we got bit by the recession.
So the guy that, is it Peter, what's he called? Peter, the guy that was involved in Direct Line. It was the RBS, it was linked to RBS, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there.
I was there through the, what they call it, when they froze it out.
So when I was at Tesco Personal Finance, Tesco Bank as it is today, I spent quite a bit of time with Green Flag.
Oh, okay.
Because that was like the indirect part of the
Direct Line. They were
like the wholesale part of it.
They're now part of DLG.
So a lot of the Tesco Personal Finance, Tesco Bank products were all...
Crawford Davison came from...
Well, Crawford.
He became Group Marketing Director at Direct Line.
A small world.
Well, it was more than Direct Line, actually. It was...
Yeah, he was in...
Direct Line Group.
Yeah, he was in Tesco when I was in Tesco.
Yeah, Crawford.
Yeah, small world. There you go.
But that, that was the peak, if you like, and then the trough was we got bitten basically by the recession.
Right.
So
which one?
2009.
Oh, right.
Delayed, if you like.
So
we caught the cold from it. So ING Direct left the country.
Right.
Because they were exposure to Greece.
Okay.
So they sold it off to Barclays.
Right.
SEAT moved their budgets into Spain, and then Direct Line, going into detail, change of personnel. So I then sold that to a corporate, and that was 4 years ago.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I don't know who this is being published to, but I hated it. And the new agency, for 2 years, I put that out. And then again, I said, I've had enough. So I left that, and that was 2 years ago. And I took 6 months off to say, right, what am I going to do now? What am I interested in? Right. And that's when I met Anna. That's when I met these guys. Okay. And then I started saying, this is really interesting.
Right, and it sounds like because you've been it's not similar to what I've done actually. I worked in big corporates like GE, SAP, Tesco, and obviously you go into different shapes of business. Sounds like you've done that obviously with the old and stuff like that, and then you start to see, you get clarity on really what you want to do, rather than what you may be steered to do by other people or whatever.
Yeah,
so it's, because you become more, you get that clarity of thought. I think you get that clarity of purpose.
I think it's not about being arrogant, but I think it's exactly that. It's about purpose. And I've always wanted, I come from a family of people that run their own businesses.
Right, okay.
And I think I've been heavily influenced by that. And it wasn't so much the arrogance of, it has to be my way, not at all. I'm very interested in how other people think. And that's what I've so enjoyed.
Right.
And it's meeting people that can inspire you. And you keep learning.
Exactly.
And that's certainly what I'm doing now, every single day.
Yeah, you're now an AI, machine learning, robotic expert.
I'm never going to be a tech expert, but I'll understand what it can provide and what can it do for me.
Well, that's the detail.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the detail.
So, what are your dreams for your business today? What's the G? What's the growth plan? What does that future look like?
Well, Future Kings specifically, Anna's obviously different. Anna is to be the #1 homewares brand in the UK. A designer brand, and that is
that's a BHAG.
Yep. It's
a big, hairy, audacious goal.
It is.
Yeah.
And
what's good?
And it may sound quite simple, but it is all about growth. We're Quantum Investment. We've got the first angel investor. We're seeking another one at the moment.
Okay.
We've opened a shop. We've got our e-commerce all sorted. We're now looking at distribution.
Mm-hmm.
We've just branched into new product ranges.
So your online store is your biggest shop.
Yeah, by a long way.
Yeah.
But the challenges there are the role of retail, and that's kind of very, very. We're not big enough to employ some of the new tech out there to create much more of an experience in store. But you look at what capability around
the whole high street's been reshaped, isn't it? I mean, Matlin every week.
Unfortunately, some of them too slow. Matlin, House of Fraser recently. Yeah. But you look at what Apple do. If you look at that and go, that's just an experience.
Yeah.
Now, it's been around for a while. We'll take it for granted. Yeah. That was the future, present. Yeah. And every store needs to be like that. Yeah. Or version of. So that's our aspiration to get our retail side. For Future Kings, we're Future Kings with the startups, with the MVB program. We want to be running a program of between 12 and 16 startups a year. Okay. That is what we want to get involved with. And
that's your current ambition. Yeah.
That's our current ambition, and that's in the plan for next year.
Right.
As we've just launched it, so we're being honest to ourselves and test and learn, make sure we've got this rigor correct
before you scale.
Before we scale. Then we are.
So 2018 is a pretty important year for getting the foundations in place.
Yeah. Well, the foundations are here now. Oh, sorry, 2018. Yes, you're right. Yeah. I mean,
we're accelerating.
We're quietly confident in what we've started now. The lead system.
Exactly. Be fearless.
But for Future Kings, it's continued to grow and as a startup and develop. So it is about finding the right people. But in terms of our proposition, we've clearly defined one for the startup community. We're about to launch one for the scale-up. So one of the important things is in that first period of startup, which is either defined as under 4 years, or you're at pre-seed, early seed stage.
Right.
What happens next? And we are working with some scale-ups. Checkwood Financial, for example, that went from 18 months ago, 20 months ago, seed stage, 3-4 of them, put 150 million investment in February.
Wow.
And now 70 of them, 60, 70
wow.
of them.
Wow.
To go on that accelerated journey, you need to have your business organised. And that's what we do. We help businesses take that next leap. Yeah. And that, to me, is the next challenge.
So would you say that going from that level with Checkwood to that 150 million, that's a massive, I remember, I was one of the first 5 guys at Tesco Mobile, it's like there was literally 400 or 500 grand a room, like in one room in Tesco in Chesham, saying, okay, what do we do now, right? How do we launch this business? Obviously that's in a corporate, but to go to the size where you're going to look after multiple million customers, you've got to have some serious thinking about that. You've got to think it through. You've got to plan it through. You got to get the right people on board. It's quite a lot of work.
It's the latter bit. The aspiration, and there's a lot of focus on how we get customers on board. Yeah. That's all very well. That's great. Yeah. But who's going to do this? And it's the internal. So we've got to get a culture defined and right. We've got to get internal communications, employment right. Yeah. We've got to get, in effect, what our organisation will help us do is internal. Get that really founded and grounded. Yeah. Then you can go, right, now we can take it out to customers. Yeah. That's a simpler way of looking at it, and that's where massive credit.
I think to your point that people don't, I think we both talked this quite about the CEO founders. They don't always see that until they've got some like choppy water, as I would call it. They've got there's some things that are happening, maybe some attrition, or there's some internal fighting or whatever, and then they need to work that through, and then go back to some foundational piece and redefine, re-energize, and re-engage with the employees, etc. As we the old adage, the soft stuff is the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of the organisations would prefer to have robots, obviously, in their organisations, but unfortunately that's not quite there yet.
Not quite yet.
So I suppose that linking that to you talked about your personal growth story. How has that affected, or how has that given you a different lens or a different perspective on what you do with Future Kings now and with Anna? What are the top three things maybe you've learned through that personal, that peaks and valleys that you're going, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep doing that, but I'm going to stop doing that.
Yeah, I think.
Any thoughts on that?
I think that there's, you talk a lot about growth, but why are we growing? Is it purely to make money, or is it personal growth?
Yeah.
And I would most certainly, one of the things that I think I have been quite consistent on is do something that interests me.
Right.
Because you've only got one crack at stuff. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Well, they might fix that, you see. They might get this kind of life extension piece.
I don't want to go back to it. But I think that's perfect. And I think genuinely, and as part of that interest, is working with people that you like.
Right.
This may all sound a little bit soft, but and respect. They may be the most intelligent, but if you go back to that very first question, when you get out of bed in the morning, you do not want to get up, you don't want to go to work, be with those people, then that to me is then change. Yeah. You may be doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. And I think as a consequence of working with people is listen and be prepared to, on the one hand, be confident of your own convictions, but at some point be prepared to try and reevaluate that. Now, there is a balance there because not everybody can be right. Yeah. And we were talking about earlier, weren't we? There is this thing called ego, which is a sort of tainted word. Yeah. But when I saw Vladimir Klitschko at a web summit in Lisbon last year,
the boxer,
ex-heavyweight boxer. I mean, again, you may just think he's a boxer. This guy runs a consultancy. He's a very, very inspiring guy. Very, very smart, very intelligent.
And this is a discipline to get to that level of performance.
Yeah, at the age he was as well.
Yeah.
And he's
how old is he? He was 40.
Yeah, must be now. Yeah, but he's very, very, and having been beaten, recently, I'm not a boxing aficionado, the British chap. Yeah. He was very, very generous in his congratulations. But one of those things he said, have an ego. He said, ego is a negative word, it shouldn't be. Yeah. An ego is a positive thing because if you don't have one, no one's going to give you one. Yeah. And he was, and I found it, there must have been a good, 4,000 people in the audience. Yeah. And he was going, but that's how I kept going on. Yeah. Is a belief in myself and what I'm doing. Yeah. And I'm sort of repeating what he said, but bring the right people around you that support you, that don't let, if you like, the ego get too inflated. You've got to believe in it.
The key ground of this.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, lots of founders have. It's they call it a passion and a purpose. Right. And that's true of most founders.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point, to me, because I think one of the things that we're doing with this podcast with G&T sessions is to try and get these discussions out there and get people to think about and get all these reference points. Because you've got a lot of experience. Everybody's been through his experiences. How do you actually people learn for the future? And I think that's been a really good talk about that point. I suppose switching back onto the kind of from the G to T again. Future technology. I actually spoke to an author that's going to be on a future episode in a few weeks, and they're working. They've been working in one of the big tech firms in the Valley, and they're just about to release a book on some very interesting insights, which I won't disclose on this episode. But I suppose it kind of talks about the future of technology. Yeah, and we touched on it a little bit earlier about tech for good, or is it what's the plus and the minus, you could say, of technology. So any specific, are you concerned about the future? Are you positive about the future? What's your take on that?
I am positive. I'm not concerned for me. I am concerned for my 16, 18-year-old children. Right. In terms, only because I can see how just in your everyday life, and this is at a basic level, how technology is dominating. Yeah.
Everything like social, Snapchat, Instagram, all that.
Everything from social channels to even work well-being. Right. Again, a study has shown that anxiety at work, anxiety in social circles is growing. Now that's not good, and that's technology that's creating this because we're always on. There's been lots of we're all familiar with it.
A bit like the Sam Sinek stuff that you've seen that stuff about, talking to millennials and talking about this kind of thing about depression and all these kinds of anxiety because they're not actually able to relate to people because they've been related to a machine and all that kind of stuff.
And I think at the end of the day, human interaction is very important, and I think on the positive side though, I do think this my children's generations are the ones that are going to change it though. Yeah, yeah. because it's the generations ahead of them that have introduced it all. And they're going to go, this isn't the right way of doing this.
Yeah.
And I think we will evolve. For all the scaremongering, Matrix predictions, 1984, I do think that, as we're starting to see now on Facebook, as we're starting to see now legislation coming in and the government's getting involved saying, you can't do this, it will.
Yeah, Facebook started putting adverts on the bus stop saying we are good people again.
Yeah, but we all know that there's, they haven't really managed their house well. They've been very
It's fascinating you mentioned 1984, because I actually was in a very well-known market in London just recently. Actually, I bought the latest edition of 1984. I actually read it at school. It was actually in our course curriculum.
Me too.
And when you read it again, you go, oh! This is obviously written in 1948, published in 1949, and obviously we're past 1984, but wow. It's absolutely fascinating how, obviously that's not the only one, there's obviously a few other books that are associated with that that are talking about the same stuff, but yeah, it's just, it's quite amazing how that technology stuff is hopefully going to go, what you're saying, be managed and governed and not kind of lose control of it and just go to one extreme and just become using it in a good way.
Talk about books we read when we were studying, apologies if it's meaningless to anybody else out there, but E.M. Forster, The Machine Stops, still resonates with me. It's a short story. And that is where human beings live in white boxes because technology does everything else for you. Remote living. Now, that's all very sensational. And yes, I think we can talk about the negatives, but there's a lot of coverage. On the positives, though, what I'm very excited about technology is how it's going to solve problems we have had for a long time. Mm-hmm. Health, particularly, around universities, Cambridge and Oxford. I mean, Cambridge has got a number of investments and incubators there around how we're going to be able to cure cancer and understand DNA. And that's through AI, it's through big data. Yeah. Now it can only be good, can't it?
Exactly.
The converse is life expectancy goes up, then we've got another problem, which is sustainability. So can technology...
Well, on the spaceships, then we see Elon Musk will sort out spaceships.
Technology doing that.
SpaceX will be working.
Well, we'll be going up.
Maybe Space Z by then, so like X, Y, Z.
So I think technology then will hopefully solve that problem through sustainability.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it. I'm trying to do some work with sustainable ventures now. So you've got specialist investment funds specifically for that. Sustainable.
Yeah, it's just not the one-off; it's the long-term. It
is, and I come across some again in terms of always learning. I came across a business called Well To Do. What do? They are building AI in terms of food wastage within catering.
Right.
So in the restaurant business, I need to order. They can't quite predict how many people are going to come into my restaurant in the next few days. Average this, so we have to have that. There's always going to be wastage. So how do we get much better at predicting it? And we've all seen this in terms of bots within linking and the Internet of Things linking to our fridge so that we know what's in there. So wastage. Now I think that's really exciting because that's about sustainability, helping the environment, etc., etc. So I think there's lots of positive things out there that will be happening, and the very practical things like FinTech. And I think like Chetwood, I'll go back to them. They're a technology business. They happen to be a bank. And they happen to create, they're using technology to create products to help people get better off. Because the old system, the old process in FinTech, they were the haves and the have-nots. You just can't get a loan. You can't get, haven't got decent savings.
It's black and white, basically.
Yeah. So because of the old legacy system. Now,
but that's a shift, you see, if you think about it. So they do the actual, I don't know what the heritage of Shetland's founders are, but I don't know if the bank is
one's bank and one's technology.
Okay, so you've got the bank, you've got the balance there. But, for actually to make a statement like that they actually are a tech company, they are a software company, a bit like, just see, I stuff, a bit earlier with Just Eat Share, and they're saying, they fundamentally, in their bench, they talk about they are a tech company, which, actually, it's really, software's eating the world, Martin Brace, and really it's quite amazing what the repositioning is. And then the CEO, if anyone about that, them to be re-educated on what this tech means for their business, and what for their growth strategy. Fascinating. So I know every day you're speaking to co-founders, founders, CEOs, leadership teams about what about how you help them with that creativity? What would kind of be the advice, suggestions? If they think, somebody out there that think we've got a great idea, is there some kind of, 2 or 3 takeaways, 2 or 3 lessons learned or observations you'd say? Guys on listening to this podcast and go, I've got this great idea, I've seen this kind of this white space. What are the 2 or 3 things that you would say, make sure you do this, this, and this, it's a must do?
Yeah. Well, I think that is firstly, is it identify a gap or a problem that's not being solved?
Yeah.
Or maybe there is an answer out there, but it doesn't look like enough. Yeah?
Right.
And I've got to be brutally honest about it, otherwise you're just going to need to.
Yeah.
So Brandon can help you there.
It's not differentiated.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I've found, and I think that's going back to what I enjoy, is the startup community, and that is huge, is so generous, right, in listening, providing value for no commitment.
Right. So
one of the things I would do is try and share this, obviously with friends and family, but with some people who are experts in that field. Right. Now, of course, you want to retain IP and you've got to be careful about how much you give away, but go test the water.
Right.
And generally,
so seek counsel.
Yes. And I think, and that's where...
a sounding board.
And that's where, obviously, the Accelerators, that's where they came from. And as I said, they're good and bad, like any sector. And, some of those are really, really good. So that would be the first thing. I think you've got to have tenacity, though. Don't give up. And I'm sure...
So you've got to have extreme ownership, you've got to go for it, you've got to commit.
I think it's commit, but it's as much, not just time, but it's willpower.
Right.
Because you're always going to get
negative.
You're going to say no,
you're
going to get knocked back.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. And I also suggest...
Which implies mindset. It's about how do you actually make sure you get to it mentally.
Yeah.
You can actually perform when you're doing day-to-day.
And I'm a massive admirer of, not because he's one of my close mates, but he's been so tenacious about this idea that came up 7 years ago, flying back with wife's Australian from Australia, and he had this idea about wills and getting organising for your assets for debt. 7 years on, it's now got investment, it's about to be launched, it's now going to go white label, and he's just been so tenacious.
Right, he's not given up.
He's not given up, and it's fantastic. So I think that's really, really important. Coupled with that,
especially that's kind of like quite a kind of a, it's not exactly a planning for death. It's going to be
it's a subject we don't like talking about.
Yeah.
I did.
So being tenacious on that's quite a.
But I going back to the corporates. I work with human and did research on that, and I thought we just don't like talking.
It's like
other cultures will. Yeah. They accept it.
So I interest you sort of like personal stuff.
Oh, the personal thing, I think, is work with people. I've said it more than once, but for me, it is work with people in the radio. And one of my, I guess, what I would change in certain times in my career, get a real partner alongside you. Don't try and take on, firstly, don't try and take on all of the answers.
Yeah.
Secondly, sometimes you just need somebody.
But also in the selection of partner, it's also make sure you get with the right partner.
So absolutely.
And you actually get, to understand that person and make sure you can, because in the peaks, it's okay in the peaks, but then in the valleys, sometimes people change.
Yeah, I mean,
and they change, and they deal with it differently.
Yeah. But I think, at the beginning and the end, I'm definitely someone that can compliment you, not exactly the same as you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're both going to make the same mistakes and agree on all the same things. You need a healthy bit of friction. As long as you walk around in the end of the day, don't have a beer, or go off your life without any antagonism, that's it. And I enjoy that, if you like, that interrogating the idea.
So what you say is, first one was white space, find something differentiated.
Yeah.
The second one was grit and tenacity.
Well, I think the second one would be open-minded and go listen, share and listen to the comments back.
Yeah.
There could be a nugget here, a nugget there, but have tenacity, because lots of people may say it's crap.
Yeah.
Or don't bother doing this. So ignore the naysayers.
And then the third thing is people.
And the third thing is definitely
the team.
Yeah, and I think that is, to me, it's so important because it goes back to what I said earlier. We can get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's lonely being a founder.
Yeah.
If you're on your own. It's lonely just being 2 or 3 of you.
Yeah.
And there's this tension because you're taking the risk. But you know, if you've got a team, someone can pick you up when you're down.
You can bounce off each other.
And better ideas
Yeah.
come from being shared.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I know we're going to wrap up the session now, but I would really say thank you very much for sharing your insight on this.
That's been great.
That was Andy Snuggs, Managing Partner for Future Kings Ventures, and that was episode 5 of the G&T sessions. So keep watching, keep listening, and see you soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.